This is Luna's story by Mr. Polehill's class. Here is a brief description of the project and why we decided to do this.
Chapter 1 by Jaden. When I first opened my eyes, I looked into the eyes of the woman. The woman's voice was gentle. Her hands were strong. I can't remember my family or the day I was pulled from the collapsed den. In the first weeks of my pup life, the woman fed me from bottles and slept beside me on layers of clean straw spread on the floor of an old wooden shed.
Chapter 2 by Alex. As I became an adult, my coat grew in a silvery tan color with pale gray markings. My golden eyes followed every movement outside my fence. The woman visited with food, sometimes bringing roadkill deer. When the woman was gone, I watched, my ears forward in attention. Most days I paced the boundaries of my fence, or I danced below the raven that taunted me from his perch of freedom. From beyond my fence came unknown smells. Sometimes I hear howling in the night and howl back. With my large paws, I dug holes in the ground by the buried fence, holes the woman soon filled with rocks.
Chapter 3 by Lizzie. One day in spring, the air turned soggy and warm. I searched the cooling earth of my hillside den. Suddenly, like an intake of breath, there was a threatening hush. Then, scouring bent the trees of the forest, followed by rumbles of thunder and cracks of lightning. Rain ran in streams down the hill, flooding my den. Outside the pen, trees fell in every direction, blown like straws in the mouth of the wind. Searing lightning followed by earth-shaking thunder.
Chapter 4 by Devin. As the storm continued to flog the trees, I, the silvery tan wolf, ran from fence to fence, my legs bent in fear, my ears flattened. With a deafening crack, a huge white pine fell, crushing the fence on one side of the pen. To escape the sound, I climbed through the branches of the fallen tree, scaled the trunk, and jumped free. I ran, cowering through slashing water, through bending and breaking trees. I ran for hours. Finally exhausted, I slept in shadows. I woke up in the strange forest. Nothing smelled familiar. Slinking behind fallen trees, skirting meadows, I ran again.
Chapter 5 Maya. When I tasted the new smells and felt the new fears, I ran some more. After days of hunger, I tracked the scent of meat. I approached slowly and sniffed the quick pain of a trapper on my foreleg. Enraged me. I felt so much pain in my leg. Later, a man lunged at me. Then I crouched and curled into my back. He jabbed at me, and I covered my head.
Chapter 6 by Charlie Magnusson. I patrolled the small pen with caution steps. The smell of other animals wafted through the air. When Bristow threw the scraps of meat over the fence, Bristow's mouth twisted to the side. I howled and froze for a second behind a pile of lumber. In my corner, I began to dig. Each day I dug with new energy. My large paw became dark with dirt, and in the night the rich, dark smells of earth called me to dig some more. When I slept, my paw moved in my dream.
Chapter 7 by Ashley. Today Bristow came into the pen shouting swear words. Bristow had a gun in his hands and was waving the gun in my face. It was so scary. I went to the corner of my cage and dug at the hole I made and dug as fast as I could. I went so fast I couldn't see my paws. Finally, I saw air through the tunnel. I slipped through the hole. Suddenly, I felt something. I felt freedom. As I left the road into the woods, I felt amazing. But then I heard Bristow behind me. He shot at me but missed, so I ran faster and lost him in the woods.
Chapter 8 by Haley. I, the tan wolf, hid in the shadows of the forest. Soon I got hungry, so I went back to Bristow's house in search of food. I got shouted at by Bristow, and it scared me.
so I ran away with no food as Bristol shot at me. Now I angled up a rocky hill following the smells of water. As I came out of a tree, I saw a lake below me. I ran down to the water, leaped in the water, and swam to Eagle Island. Overhead, an eagle circled above me, screeching in its shadow. Its shadow slipped across my body.
Chapter 9 by Sophie. I pulled myself up on the rocks of the small island. Standing on the shore, I shook, water spraying from my head, then from my body, finally from my tail. I stood to listen. There were no frightening sounds. I heard the sounds of wings. I slipped into a shadow area on a rise where I could rest and see. As I lay down, the dry lichen crunched beneath me. I tasted wildness in the air.
Piper, Chapter 10. I explored the island chasing snowshoe hares in brown summer coats as they zigzagged through dense trees. I found bits of fish dropped by eagles. Every day I paced the shoreline, then circled to my lookout rock. I felt constant hunger, but I could wait. The days were warmer. Fingers of cool air slipped down the rock as the late night sunset simmered at the horizon. I curled tightly and lost myself to sleep.
Chapter 11 by Mackenzie. I ate, but it was never enough. Emptiness kept me moving. This is the first time I haven't had food brought to me. Now my instincts sharpened, and I hunted mice and voles. Stiff-legged, I pounced at the fish in the shallow water.
Chapter 12 by Aisha. One day I heard scraping on the rock. Loud men got out of a boat after they left. I bent my legs and approached the place where they had been. Heads and part of fish were piled on a long, flat ledge of granite. Eggs dropped down to grab bits of fish. I curled my lips up from my teeth and rushed at the large birds. It was not much, but I ate.
Chapter 13 by Johnny. I made my daily visit to the fish piles. I saw eagles and turkey vultures circle above me, and gulls bobbing by the shore. But when I arrived, they all scattered because I guess they were scared of me. This morning, after eating breakfast, I looked at the lake. I saw a human with some sort of silvery box by his eyes. I circled to watch him from a distance. Later, some fish appeared on the rock, so I ate them. I found some pink feathers. I think it was a dead bird. Finally, I wasn't hungry. I don't have to pace constantly. I caught a hare. I watched for the human. I watched for the fish piles.
I watched for Nika and Thomas to come. I heard the boat scraping, then their voices gentle and low. I wanted to go up to them, to greet them like I had the woman, to roll on the ground nearby, but I remembered the man in the cage, and I stayed behind the branches.
Lizzie, Chapter 15. For several days, Thomas came with binoculars and sat alone quietly, while the sun moved the shadows of the trees. I stretched out on a large flat rock and watched, smelling food. I paced back into the forest from my loose-limbed way, returning later to a new position on the ledge. There I stayed until a cloud at the horizon line sliced across the sun. As usual, after Thomas was gone, I sniffed the area where he'd been. On these days, across the hill beyond the eagle's nest, I tapped on the wedge of a rock. I found food.
And this is the end of part 1. Stay tuned for part 2.